I was anticipating the state of the culture when I heard that this show was being assembled. I anticipated it because I figured that this would be the show that would get the interest of the older demographic of rap fans. Of course, you have Joe Budden, you have Remy Ma, and already right there, you have sort of a basis for quality. You have a basis for just genuine hip-hop commentary, insider commentary. You figure that they are two artists that are linked to other legendary artists. They have integrity. The show's going to be good. That's what I figured. Then you also have Scottie Beam, who, from what I understand, is a media personality, came from Hot 97, and she's done other shows as well. And then you have Jinx, who's been with Complex for a few years. You watch this show, and you look at the name State of the Culture, and by that name, I take the show very seriously. This is the state of the culture. You figure what you're going to hear on this show is going to be paramount opinions about what's going on in rap culture. Now, look, I'm not naive. I understand that this show is for entertainment purposes. I know it's not going to be a serious show where things are being declared and firmly stated, but you figure there has to be something that separates the show from everyday struggle, for example. This show, to me, works because the personalities they're necessary for one another. You have Jinx, who's the voice of reason. He's the analyst. He's the person that's going to come with the stats and the figures. The downside to Jinx, though, is that Jinx is never challenged. He just cites a bunch of statistics that he probably got from liberal-leaning sites or from black sites, and they always support his argument. So there's never anyone there to to challenge him, to see if there's really some validity to what he's saying. But I think Jinx is almost sort of used as a wonder boy on the show. Like, we couldn't possibly lay out all those stats. Go ahead, Jinx. Be the smart nigga. Like Joe calls him. Like, go ahead with your smart nigga shit, nigga. I think that's how they use him on the show, which it's a strength and it's a weakness because it exposes the other three hosts. Then you have Remy Ma, who sort of plays the role of the contrarian, the conservative, the cynic. The downside to her is there's not a lot of nuance to her opinions. She just tends to be black and white. It's either yes or no, hot or cold. There's not much to Remy. Then you have Scottie Beam, who is I would say is the social justice warrior of the show. She's very passionate about social issues, the black Twitter issues. So she's necessary for that reason. And the obvious downside to her is that she gets overtly emotional, and it doesn't seem like she possesses the art of persuasion. You know, she doesn't possess the ability to get her thought out and to separate her emotions from her thought. And now we come to Joe Budden, the host of the show. Now, Joe sometimes he does facilitate himself as the moderator to the show. I don't think that works. It doesn't work very well. Joe isn't a good moderator. He's not a good point guard. I think Joe's good when you feed him the ball. I think that's what worked well on Everyday Struggle when Nadeska would feed him topics. And the downside to Joe is the name of the show is State of the Culture, and it starts off every episode with the very personal shot of Joe Budden's face. I never want to be that close to Joe Budden. A very close-up shot of his face, and it's just very, this is the state of the culture, and we're going to discuss, they choose very, what one would call important topics on the show, but the downside to Joe is that he tends to pull the show down to a sort of juvenile level. I mean, he tackles important topics, but there's always these times on the show when, like I said, he'll refer to Jinx and say, nah, nigga, stop with this smart shit, nigga. Let's just laugh. Let's just laugh. You know, because you almost feel like Joe's just happy that he's in this position, which is fantastic. That's great. But you have a job to do. You have a show to deliver. And I think when the show isn't taken seriously, it's unfortunate, because it kind of reminds me of the time that Joe appeared on the battle rap scene on Total Slaughter versus Holla the Don. And my opinion, and you can type it in D-Respect Total Slaughter, my opinion on that was that Joe didn't give the platform the respect that it deserved. He felt like he was above the platform, and it really showed. You know, he was prepared. You know, he didn't pull a cannabis. He didn't get up there with a, let me spit my shit. Why did my voice just crack? So he didn't crack in that way, but he didn't show any respect for the platform. And I think he kind of does it here at times when he feels that the show has already discussed what they've needed to discuss, and he kind of just sits back and says, hey guys, let's just relax. And I don't feel that way. I feel that you should continue to make the show as good as it possibly can be, because when you watch Everyday Struggle, even though that show is, you know, it's much more triggered to a younger crowd, Everyday Struggle at least makes an attempt. They make an attempt to have intelligent discourse. They make an attempt to try to do it. I don't think they always succeed. Sometimes I think Wayno and academics, they go off on some interesting topics, but I feel that the show tries. It tries, and State of the Culture, because Joe is the point man, because he is the facilitator, sometimes it tends to go to the bottom and everybody just sort of relaxes, and it's like, hey guys, we're just here, we're having a good time, revolt. I don't approve of that. The worst part of the show is this, the aesthetic of the show, the look of the show. I don't understand why the show why that set has to be built in that way. It's so impersonal and distant at times when you see Joe talking to the camera, and the camera looks like it's about 15 feet away from him, and it sounds like he's just like yelling in the studio, in an empty studio. You almost feel like they should have a studio audience if they're going to be up on a stage, on a lit stage, and everybody's so polished and everybody's got so much makeup on them, and sometimes it feels like you're watching, and maybe this was the intention, you know, maybe this was the producer's intention, was to make the show sort of feel like a reality wrap-up show. If you guys ever watched those Love and Hip Hop reality wrap-ups, that's kind of what it feels like, just without the studio audience and the actual moderator sitting in the middle. But it feels that way, and it wouldn't surprise you that it feels that way, because obviously you have Remy Ma, who I believe was on Love and Hip Hop, and obviously Joe was on Love and Hip Hop. But the show feels so cold when you watch it, because everybody's so far away and so distant. I think if they all came together, I think it would work more. I don't think the show would work if it had a moderator, though. Like if they just had somebody in the middle and sort of pick the topics. I think if they had to do that, it would still have to be 4 people, so maybe they would have to lose 1 person. But I just don't think that Joe's the right person to be the moderator. In my mind, it should kind of be Jinx. If Jinx is going to be the facts person, he should be the person that brings up the topics. He should be the person that presents the question to the to the panel. Which I think is one of the strengths of the show when you compare it to Everyday Struggle, because one of the problems that I've noticed with Everyday Struggle is they bring up a topic and it's sort of just an open-ended discussion. For example, Nadeska will bring up a topic of a 21 Savage, something that happened with 21 Savage. And, she'll just say, what do you guys think? And then academics will say something that applies to the particular topic, and then he'll just go off in a tangent about 21 Savage. And then, of course, Wayno doesn't know as much about 21 Savage, so he'll address what's being said, and he's kind of off base with it because he doesn't really know anything about 21 Savage. And then they're talking about two completely different things at once, you know, rather than bring up the question like you see these shows. Because don't forget, these shows are, as far as the content on the show and how the content is delivered, they're all wired to be like ESPN debate shows. That's what they're all wired to be. You maybe show the video clip and you ask the panel the question, and the panel choose on that question. And that's where State of the Culture sort of succeeds, because Joe does come up with the question and the panel does break that specific question down. And also it makes the show more interesting over the long run, because if we just have general and vague conversations about artists, you'll never have anything to talk about in the future. If you break those down to specific nuanced arguments, then there's a lot more to chew on. Do you guys watch the State of the Culture? It's about 9 episodes in. Do you watch State of the Culture? You know, I think that there is a lot of room for better shows. I think there is room for different shows. I've seen Nick Cannon. He's, you know, it looks like he's around he seems to be around this ecosystem, like he's maneuvering in and out. I've seen him do lectures, and I see that he has an interest in coming into this world. So I think there's a lot of room for different shows. And what I do appreciate about State of the Culture is that it is different from Everyday Struggle. And there are going to be a handful of these shows in the future. I don't think in the near future, but there will be different shows that will be influenced by these two shows. And I think it's important that we know what we're watching and what the strengths and the weaknesses are, so we can actually end up having a good show via the internet. Since it's on Revolt TV, since the State of the Culture is on TV, it feels like a TV show. You know, it feels like a TV show, which I don't love. I don't love the fact that it feels like a TV show. I'd rather it feel like a show that's on YouTube instead of a show that's being posted on YouTube. So do you guys watch the State of the Culture? What do you think about the show? Please let me know in the comment section below, and I will see you guys next time.